Okay, so I'm going to go through this this last assessment. I'll try to go quick. So I'm sure you have many videos to watch. I'm just going to mention things that I've seen wrong in your answers. Okay. First question is to write 6 black box test cases based on a specification of the max method, which is just given above. What I've seen quite wrong here often is people not giving actual test. So they would say that the first argument has to be greater than the second, and maybe that two have to be equal, but those are not tests. A test case is what are the inputs, what are the expected output. Okay, so it has to be nice and clear. We want 6 of those. So based on the specification, and the specification takes as argument 3, introduce the methods called max, return the largest of the 3, unless the arguments are all equal, in which case the exception. So let's deal with when the arguments are all equal. Maybe that's easiest. Okay, so basically max of when they're all equal, such as 1, 1, 1, I'm expecting an illegal argument exception as per the specification. And number 2, so I only have 6 tests to play with. So I will make maybe the first one the maximum, and then another test the second, and then another test the third. Okay. Let's put in some negative numbers because, as we mentioned in class, it's often forgotten. So let's make the first one the largest. For example, 42 minus 89, and then 0. I'm expecting 42 to be the largest, sorry, the expected result, because it is the largest here. Okay. This expected result 42. Okay, and just for clarity, maybe just repeat that just above. Yeah, so that's all tests from the specification, and those are black box test cases based on the specification. So as I said, max, let's make it the second one this time. I just try to trick 67, 99, and minus 1. This time I'm expecting 99. Little cut and paste might save me some time. Number 4, make it the largest. So let's say 100, which is only 1 above the 99. That's actually quite probably a nice test. Okay. Let's make 2 equal. Why not? In this case, I'm expecting 99. Okay, and that's test number 5. I have one more. We could play with all zeros, but we already have tested all the same. If you're short of ideas, maybe all negatives. Minus 5 is 4, and minus 3, in which case the largest is minus 3. So therefore, that's what I'm expecting. Just a quick check. I haven't made a mistake. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Expected here. When the arguments are all equal, the exception should be raised. Okay, so that happens there. Some people misinterpret this, or maybe they start to look at the code. I have no idea, but if I wrote that you misunderstood the specification, it's very often because you thought that this would raise an exception. I think first of all, it's always common to misunderstand the specification. It's just normal. That's how bugs are created. But in this case here, it says that unless the arguments are all equal, so they have to be all equal to raise an exception. So that shouldn't raise an exception. Okay. Okay, and then the final one, yeah, the largest is minus 3. Okay, just to be careful with negative numbers. And 99, 42 is the largest. Okay, so that looks fine. The code is available here. So, okay, let me launch IntelliJ. I'm gonna create a blank new project. Okay, that gets launched. Okay, so here we have a blank project with nothing in it, a source folder that is empty. So here you could cheat and create a class and basically just cut and paste this because it's very small, you know, and it's only one file. So that was the quickest way out of it. But I'm going to do the proper way because this is a correction. A proper way is to clone that particular file. So my projects are in IDA projects, I believe. Yes. I need to go to the right project, which is I've called CA correction 2021. And I need to go to the source folder. So I'm in the right place and that should be empty. It is indeed empty. So then I can git clone and I need the URL of this. This one. Okay, it's right click. So that's it, we've cloned. So I'm gonna source now. Just it's a little bit messy here because it puts it into testing CA. So I'm just gonna move that to the source folder just to simplify the structure. Okay, you don't have to, but I think it makes your life easier if that's the case. With then now I have an empty directory which I can delete. Okay, so that's fine. We don't need git anymore. We have cloned this and we don't need that anymore. Okay. So create your Java project. Okay. Run your JUnit. Write your test cases in JUnit format. So that's where we need to do that. We have six tests to write in JUnit format. Many different ways of doing this, as usual. I'm just going to follow what we did in the course. Okay, with a multiply example. So I think it was the first thing. Just to be neat again, there's many shortcuts. You don't have to do all of this, but just to be neat, create a test folder or directory. And we need to tell IntelliJ that this is a testing folder. So it goes into module, and we need to tell it that this folder test is indeed where the tests are to be found. And this is fine. And we then can alt enter this and get the options and create a test for that particular class. I'm going to keep to JUnit 4 because that's what I'm familiar with. I need to import JUnit 4. And now we tell it to create one dummy test for Max to get us started. And here we are all ready. My first test is to call Max 111, but I'm expecting in this case a runtime error. So that's the correct behavior that I'm expecting. We've seen this in the notes. We need to tell JUnit that it's an illegal argument exception that we're expecting here, and that is the notation that we've seen. Okay, so this is our first test for Max. I'm going to call it Max1. Okay, test one, or sometimes we can give more descriptive names. First thing to do is we need to create an object so that we can test its method Max, and the class is called testing CA. So testing CA, let's call it T because I'm going to have to write it many times. So I'm just going to make it nice and easy for myself. Is a new testing object CA. Okay, and then simply I'm gonna say because I'm expecting an exception here. When I call max, I simply need to say t dot max, and my first test is just above is 111. Okay, and that will hopefully create a bug because I'm looking for bugs. So hopefully this test will fail. Actually, we can just maybe run this test before going any further to make sure that we have everything ready. So right click on this, run with the coverage. Let's it do its magic. And yes, it does generate an exception here. So the test actually pass. So I have not found a bug, but at least my running environment is fine. I can see my coverage here is 30%. That's okay. Then we need to write the 5 other tests. Okay. Those ones not expected to generate an exception. There's a lot of cut and pasting, unfortunately, in testing things. Testing CA, and this time I need to assert that I am expecting this to be the result, and according to my black box test, it should be 42, and my test is 42 minus 89 and 0. Okay, so max 2, make sure they're not named the same thing, and then another testing object T. Okay, so that's nice and simple. Yeah, and I forgot parentheses. Okay. Note that I haven't looked at the code that I've cloned yet. I don't need to because I'm only asked to perform a black box test. So, I don't need to look at the code. Let's not waste time looking at code. We only to ask about black box tests so far. Test number 3 is this, and I'm expecting 99. 67. I'm just translating my black box test cases into JUnit format. If I were using a different framework, they would look slightly different. Principle of all testing framework is the same. So for test number 4, I'm expecting 100, and that's because 100 is indeed the largest of the 3 integers here that I'm passing to the max method. Okay. So you see when they say that automatic testing is possible, that is true, but you still have a lot of manual work just to create the test in the first place, as we just did above, and then to be able to write all those tests. Now you can be a little bit cleverer than what I'm doing here, but in fairness, we did not see JUnit in great detail, so we only use the basics of JUnit. Okay, as often is the case, I don't have the time to view every single detail about every single framework. Test number 6 is the last one. I'm expecting number -3 to be the result of calling t.max is -5, -4, and -3. Okay, and so that's it. That's my 6th test. What level of line coverage do you achieve when you run those tests? Okay, so just a quick check that obviously I've called them something different. There's no obvious major syntax errors. Let's run it and see what the compiler says. Okay, so I'm running 3 have failed and 3 have passed. Okay, so that's great. I'm delighted. Unless I made a mistake, this is good. I found some bugs anyway. The coverage that I've achieved is 80%, a line coverage that I've achieved. It's a basic, but that's what the tool reports. So that's 80%. What level of line coverage do you test? 80%. Did any of your tests find a bug? Well, yeah, 3 of them failed. So let's look at them quickly. Okay. I'm expecting, I'm calling Tmax as 67, 99, 100, and I got 99. And the specification clearly says that should be the max of the 3. So force test fell. Okay. So here it's important to be, if you're a tester or programmer indeed, you want nice bugs reports. So that's a nice test report. This test expected result fails. The actual result is 99. And I'll ask to debug. I haven't even looked at the code yet. Okay. There's no need. So I've got an exclamation mark here. That means an exception was raised, but I wasn't expecting one. So test number 5, that raises an exception, but no, I'm expecting 99. My understanding is correct. So test number 5, indeed, is another bug or needs to be investigated. Sure. Exception, or okay, full name of the exception, illegal arguments exception. Exception, fine. Okay, and then I've got a third test that fails, number 6, -5, -4, -3. I'm expecting -3, which is correct. It's the largest, and it gives me -4. So I found it may be the same bug as above, but it's a test that fails. So that's a number 6, yeah? Yeah. Actual was -4. Okay. Now, so far, I haven't looked at the code. I can upload, yeah, I'll do this, but I mean, okay. I think I can open this in the Explorer. That might be the quickest way of doing that. Okay, that's done. Last question. Try to create new white box test to increase the line coverage to 100%. Describe your effort. Okay, so that was the more interesting, more searching question. As you can see, we have only 80% coverage. Okay, we only have 80% line coverage. So then we need to look at what actually needs to be covered. Okay, as mentioned, it's on the left-hand side. Okay, we have this is never covered here, that line here, number 9. So I would need to create another test for that. Okay, so there it's a little bit, you need to check the logic. So maybe I would make some notes here just for myself. Okay. Okay, that will help me. So how do I hit line number 9 has never been hit. So how do I reach line number 9? Line 9 never executed or reached if you want. Now we need to look at white box testing, and in order to hit line number 9, A, B, okay, they need to be different, and A has to be greater than B. B has to be less or equal than C. Okay, and then A has to be less or equal than C. Okay, and the arguments are A, B, C. For example, max of A has to be greater than B. So 10 is greater than 5. And B has to be less or equal than C. So 3. Okay. So A is greater than B. Yeah, and B is less than C. Oh, that's not the case, sorry. B has to be less than C. So 2. B is less than C, yes. And A is less than C. Ooh, I'm confused. A has to be greater than B, and B has to be, okay, let me check. A is to be greater than B. I have to be in the else. So B has to be less than or equal to C, yes. And then A has to be less or equal than C. That's correct. Is that actually possible? I'm not so sure. A is greater than B, and B has to be less than C. Okay, and A has to be less than C. Okay, I don't think that's actually possible. Let me draw a line on my paper that you cannot see. A has to be greater than B. B has to be less or equal than C. And A has to be less or equal than C. I think that's impossible to actually hit that line, although possible. So that means that line 9, I think, is unreachable. I'll write a test for that. Let me come back to that maybe. The other line that is not hit is line 15. Never executed so far, okay? And to actually get to line 15, I need A to be, well, there's returns here, okay? So A, I cannot go into any of those, otherwise it's going to be a return. Okay, so A has to be less or equal than B this time. Then I will go into there, but I don't want to hit this return, so that has to be false. So B has to be less or equal than C. And finally, I want A to be greater or equal to B. Okay, that I know straight away is impossible, or greater or equal, I must say. Okay, the only way A can be less or equal than B and A can be greater or equal than B is if A is equal to B, and that would be caught here, and that would throw a new exception. So that's unreachable. So it's impossible. So line number 15 is unreachable. Okay, so I think that's nice and clear. I'm just going to do it one more time, and then I'll go back to my line number 9. To reach line number 15, I need to make sure that A has to be less or equal than B. I would then hit that else, and I don't want to make this true because then I would have a return. So B has to be less or equal than C, and I have to make this false afterwards. A has to be greater or equal than B. The only way to do that is if A is equal to B, and that's impossible because that would be caught here. So A is never equal to B here, so therefore return C is never executed. The other one, I'm not so sure. Line 9, so same thinking, in order to hit line 9, I need to make A greater than B. Yes, I hit this. This needs to be false. So B has to be less or equal than C. Okay. And then A has to be less or equal than C as well. Okay. So the last time I'm checking this, okay. This is not as straightforward to see, I think, logically, even though there's only 3 variables. We have A, which is greater than B. B, which is less than C. Okay, no, that should be okay. If we have something like, for A, I'm going to pick something middle. B, I'm going to pick something low, 0, and then C10. Does that work? A is greater than B, yes. B is less than C, that's correct. And then A is less than C. A is less than C. Yes, that's correct. Okay. So I think that's correct. Just for, so that I think is no longer unreachable. For verification and just to ease my head, assure myself, I'll write the final test here, 7. I didn't need to upload that one. It wasn't part of the question. It's just a verification really. And I'm going to call what I said 6010, and that should increase my coverage. And the expected result in that case is 10. 6010. Okay. Run just that test, I think, on its own. Run just that test on its own. It fails, but that's not the question. Okay, the coverage, I still reporting the coverage of everything. I'm just gonna hide the coverage and just, okay, so it hits 60%. Indeed, it hits a line 10. Okay, so we're happy. It hits a line 9. Okay, that's fine. And in fact, we've probably find another bug. So max 6010 increases the coverage. I think if I run all my tests all together one last time, it's probably going to be 90%. Yes, it would make sense. I have 10 tests. Replace, I think. Yeah, no, I've got 90% test coverage. But I can never hit 100%. 100% line coverage is impossible because there is unreachable code. Then line coverage is impossible. Okay, and submit. That's my answer to everything. Just a remark. So the code is relatively simple. The code is buggy. That's good. That means that we have a great time as a tester here. Depending on what test you come up with, in a black box, you may have achieved 70, 80%, 90% coverage, but you cannot achieve 100%. Logically, it's wrong because this is always, can never be executed logically. Just a final remark. As we said, now we can now we can really truly do run automatic testing as much as we want, and that takes very little time. 17 milliseconds. Yes, that's automatic testing. But yet, it probably took us a little while to come up with all those tests and to write them in JUnit format, and even to increase the coverage, as we just saw, sometimes requires a little of mental logic. And the code here is relatively simple. It's actually extremely simple. But yet it took me at least 5 minutes to find one test to increase the coverage. And if you're not careful, you could scratch your head a long time with some of those things. Okay, main thing that I would say is when you're asked to write a black box test, make sure they are actual tests. So don't say A has to be greater than B and B has to be less than C. That's not a test case. Okay, test case is what are the inputs, what are the inputs. So we want actual values. Okay, so if it's a string, it could be a Chris or Joe. If it's as here 3 integers, it's max 1 to 3, max 999, 999, 999 if you want, but we want actual value and the expected value according to the specification. As you saw, I didn't actually look at the code until I was asked to do so, until I was asked to actually increase the testing coverage achieved. Okay, I hope this helps. Thank you.